offer some advice or some guidance to policymakers about the mistakes that are often made in these dangerous periods of transition, and hopefully offer some insight into how to maintain stability and perhaps allow for the rise of new powers without the same kind of perilous dynamics that lead to outright violence and disorder.
Ideally, who I hope will benefit from my research is just society as a whole, and the planet. But I hope that my research is picked up by policymakers in particular, because I feel what I'm doing is I look at these different private sustainability standards and the interest with which they're set and the consequences of these standards. And sort of what I feel my research exposes is that sometimes these standards are set with the best intentions, but the effect that they're having is not that great. Particularly, it can put up extra obstacles for producers in developing countries to get their products to the market. On the other hand, there can also be standards that are actually set with not such great intentions. There can be standards that are set by business actors that are actually just there that they want to improve their profits or increase their profits. Yet the standards that they set might actually be beneficial for the environment, for producers in developing countries. So what I hope that I'll do with my research is really point out to these are the kind of standards that are helpful for the common good, and these are the kind of standards that are not helpful for the common good. And that then governments can decide, okay, where should we step in and where can we rely on standards that are set by the private sector to help us achieve certain goals when it comes to the environment or development.
So I often give the standard definition of international political economy as the study of the interaction between states and markets in an international or global context. And I think that that's a useful way to think about it. And it's particularly useful because it becomes increasingly difficult to know where politics ends and where the market begins, or indeed where the market ends and where politics begins. We have all kinds of instances of multinational corporations and non-governmental organizations more broadly, even today, that are essentially making policy. Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, essentially behaving as political actors, whether they desire to or not. And similarly, we have massive multinational entities that are backed by states, supported by states, that are behaving like market actors, but obviously with a very strong political basis. Think of US multinationals across the centuries, United Fruit, Standard Oil, and so on. Or think today in China of the state-owned enterprises. So we always have this blurriness between states and markets. And one of the great things about our field of international political economy is that we talk about that in a direct, explicit way. We welcome all comers. Anybody who's interested in studying this in this kind of open-ended, broad-minded way is welcome. And so we get people working on cutting-edge contemporary topics, the way that Ellen is working on, global business, influencing the state, and so on. And then even people like me who do more historical topics, great power transitions across time, and always trying to think about how the politics and how the economics interact across the global stage. The global pandemic gives us, I think, a wealth of examples of the importance of the kind of political economy analysis and international political economy approach that we take in this cluster. So on the one side, we see the enormous importance of globalization. All these deeply intertwined markets ensures that a global pathogen can spread like contagion, like wildfire from one market to the next. We also see how the production shutdowns in Wuhan in China are having significant economic effects all over the planet a full year plus later. At the same time, it also shows us how resilient globalization can be. And even the most sanguine, the most optimistic perspectives on how well we'd be able to keep the economy functioning in the face of these unprecedented economic lockdowns really shows that globalization and political economy can be used to try to maintain production and distribution, even in the face of this kind of a challenge. But there's another side to this, which is about the importance of political economy in distributing the all-important vaccines. So you've got the scientists working extremely hard, doing wonderful, just absolutely wonderful work to try to understand the virus, and produce the vaccines, and public health working overtime across the planet to try to get people the vaccines. But now we get into the political economy. Why do some countries have vaccines they're not even using that are spoiling, while other countries can't get their most vulnerable members of the population vaccinated? Why do we have people in some countries that are choosing not to get the vaccine, whereas other people desperate to get it are not able to do so? Political economy becomes all the more important in these kinds of moments, again, to try to understand not just the science of the global pandemic, but the politics and economics of its implications and our responses to it.
COVID then influences which businesses stay in business and which businesses can actually now buy up many more businesses and others that go bankrupt. And then what are then the political consequences, right? So there's still a difference if we have many different businesses or we have a couple of large businesses. So that I do find quite interesting too. So how does this pandemic influences then sort of the structure of our businesses? And also sometimes I wonder whether it is useful to have big entrepreneurs, particularly in certain cases, definitely, because you can just provide a better service. But maybe also politically, because they have such a huge interest that almost their personal interest becomes the common interest. So I really wonder one of the dynamics there. So these I just find interesting.
Well, I'm an American and originally, and one of the cases I've done research on is the American Revolutionary War, but not exclusively from the American perspective, but from the perspective of particularly the British Parliament and elite figures within Parliament, the Earl of Shelburne, the Prime Minister during part of the American Revolutionary War, and how they saw this. One of the things that we sometimes forget is that the British imperial system was largely run by and for multinational enterprises. All that tea they dumped in the harbor in Boston was the British East India Company's tea. And in fact, the decision to unload the tea was partly about the British government trying to give a helping hand to one of the multinational corporations. That's hundreds of years ago. But during the First World War, the Bank of England, which had been founded in 1694, was still during the First World War a private entity, and it was managing the debt of the British Empire, making handsome profits as a result, and paying dividends to shareholders. We've got conscription. We've got men essentially male conscription being sent across the channel to fight and die. Millions of people all across the empire, India, South Asia, Zealand, Australia, Africa, all across the empire to go and fight. And here's the Bank of England collecting profits off of the government's ballooning debt and then paying to shareholders. It's one of these kinds of challenges. On the one hand, it's the first instance it makes me horrified to think that that's the case. On the other hand, it was only because the Bank of England existed and had this extensive financial system in place that the UK was able to advance in these ways. The difference between public and private is never as tidy as we'd like to think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I gathered a few things from there. I'm not sure about you. I think you should also try to go into that a bit more. And that is whatever you saw in the video. He just glossed through a lot of topics there. But one of those things that he talked about was MNCs and how the pandemic has actually reframed global production network. So you do want to talk about or go deeper into this topic for your exams and even for your career, how global production network will change. Okay, so there are many business school out there. So one of those business school that will be relevant to your IPE here will be a crane field if you do wish to go into get global production network. I'll just show it to you. Okay, Hello, there's no sound. Okay, so the master course, right, the management course, right, don't see it's management, it's global production network that you want to look at. This is where you can study defense economics or defense management, which is strategic studies, but more precise. It's not easy to get in there. What I would recommend for you, if you want to go deeply, who the hell is Wei Han? Hey, don't come and scam me, you know. Procurement and supply chain management. So you will be looking at sectors like DHL, how they are transforming their transportation network. Okay, so this is very practical course. I would not suggest that you study another IR degree because you already have the big picture already. The best thing to do is, of course, you get into the sector that you want. Then you go and look at what you want to do. The other one is banking, not the finance anymore. This is the combination of e-commerce and digital banking. So you can see that even Standard Chartered Bank is having a joint venture with NTUC to come out with digital banks. So governments are using their companies and deploying them to move to that direction. Okay, so you can be sure that this course here is going to be very interesting. Strategic marketing, not so important anymore. But if you really want, they are the best at this. Procurement and supply chain management, logistics and supply chain management. Okay? So people ask, so what, open warehouse? The warehouse today is not like the warehouse of yesterday. The warehouse today is a lot digitalization. So in that course, you will definitely will come across a lot of features of how people like Alibaba, Amazon, big players, Walmart, and you learn about the British experience, of course, Tesco, how they are transforming their retail sector. So for us in Singapore, retail sector has always been a dirty job. But in a new economy, the retail sector is not a dirty job. It's a very innovative sector. You don't require so much cheap workers anymore. Okay, so do take a look at that, and you will have a micro view of multinational corporations. So in our course, basically, we will discuss all in big picture. And in your exams, please write at a macro level, big picture. Of course, there are some examples you can give that will be micro, but when it comes to the essay writing, come from the perspective of the three schools. So if you receive my comments, you see at specific locations I give you, I'll prompt you to expand your argument. Okay, so some people find it very useful because usually when you read, right, when you write, you don't know how it sounds. You need someone to read for you. Okay, so that's what my job is, I tell you. Okay, so the plus or the strength of my whole teaching is always to be a mirror to you, so that when you are reading out or learning something, you can see a reflection of yourself. Okay, that's for you to improve. But if you don't write your essay, it's very difficult for me to even start anything. I can't know your baseline. So by writing the essay, I have a baseline. You have a baseline for yourself. So of course, you want to reach the top line. The top line is to score. Okay, that is all your effort really. So I started the baseline, I put you to the midline, which is a 60 something. The A is all yours. So when you get A, just A, thank you, I like your subject. You did it yourself. Okay, so some people always like to say, or professors like to say, I produce A's. No professor produce A. The student make themselves A. Okay, a lot of people argue with me, oh yeah, I got a lot of A students. So what is you? You become my notes very good. That is those obsolete subjects that you memorize. In this class, or in 3000 level UOL program, all of it are analysis. You have to provide insights. Okay? So if you don't provide insights, you don't score. I tell you the truth first. So you have to be very insightful, because James Morrison appreciates such things. He knows what's going on in the textbook. He knows what's in the subject guide. He doesn't need you to tell him that. But he needs you to leverage, okay, the subject guide and create an assessment, an evaluation, and your own insights. Okay, if you still don't understand what I'm talking about, right, then please come and see me. Because some people, I tell them that, they're like, oh, okay, but they still don't understand. Because when I read the essay, I know. Okay, so we have come to the second last topic of IPE, which is MNC. This topic is very important because if you remember the first lecture, I said to you that MNCs, what is it about MNCs? I label them as something. Do you remember? Think about it for 2 minutes. What did I label the MNCs? Felicia, can you hear me now? If you can hear me, you answer my question. I guess you will say, sorry, I can't hear you. What about Yong Sing? Can you remember what I said about MNCs? Globalisation. Can't remember. It's okay. It's okay. You have to be honest with me. Don't try like, this is a trick question. It's not a trick question. Either you remember or you don't remember. You want to talk to the person beside you and try to recall, what did I say about MNC? Can't remember. Okay. I can't hear you. Oh, okay. Can you smell anything, Felicia? If you can't smell anything, I'll call the ambulance. Because you might have COVID. Can't hear, can't smell, can't taste. Oh, Omicron, Delta Cron. Anyone? I know I said many things to you, but this one, it's very important. Cannot remember. Just raise your hand. Cannot remember. Okay. I say that MNCs. Oh. Remember now? Okay. What does it mean? What does agency mean to you? If you're in political science, you must know what there's this thing called human agency. The word agency brings us to another path. So, from a political economy perspective, the MNCs are the primary agent. What does it mean to you? And there's this thing called agency. And what does it lead us to? Have you all studied that in your... Again? Self-driven actor, okay. That is... okay. But what does agency mean to you? To you. Because political scientists have different definition of what agency is. So you must be on the same page first, okay? So when you write to James Morrison, you don't have different views of agency. What is agency to you? I can't hear you. Advertising your own way, okay. Not the advertising agency, the agency. Exercising your own view, okay, correct. But what is the main observation when we look at agency? For you, you're looking at, you know that they are exercising their own will, right? The MNCs are exercising their sovereign wealth or power or whatever you want to call it. But what are you, as an academic, are you assessing? It brings us back to the three schools again. Okay, I need to bring you back to the three schools because a lot of you will write MNCs, you put all the figures, but it's not political economy. Political economy is a study of power. is a study of exercising your will, which comes with power. For the MNCs, they have economic as well as political power. So, but from you as an academic, what are you assessing? You say? What do you say just now? You just said something, right? Okay. So, but when you are writing all these, there must be an assessment to be made by you on your part right now. No, there's one thing that you all must focus on. What's that? I can't hear you. Yeah, you will assess the role of the MNC, but from your perspective, the three schools there's one thing that you need to observe and assess about the MNCs after they exercise their economic and political. Yeah? Okay, they will have their interest. Based on that, when you assess the agency part, how they are exercising their power, what would you say? The three schools are okay. Let's say the three schools, they have something in common. They always talk about this thing. They shoot at each other. Okay, public and private sphere. Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Actors that make things happen. Something so MNC spread globalization. Okay, hold on. The state, the market. But there's this thing about MNCs that you need to focus on when you're using that school of thought, so that you don't go all over the shop. I'm trying to get that for you. What's that? I can't hear you. Exploitation. Okay. When there's exploitation, you go back to the three schools of thought, the main attributes there. Marxists will say, oh, exploitation, right? Not. Okay, I agree with you. They are the social force, they are historically the material force. You need them because they are the ones with the manufacturing prowess, R&D capability. But from the liberals, as well as the mercantilists, they have something in common. Some would say, oh, MNCs are good. Some would say MNCs are not that good. What is that main factor that you should focus on when you're writing about MNCs? Then? I give you a hint. Somewhere in the middle, yes. It starts with M. Remember, you are not economists. Economists look at the structural process, give you all the data, growth. That's not your job. Okay? Starts with M. And whether you are a liberal or you are a mercantilist, you want to address this problem. What is that? I just give you a better hint, even closer to the answer already. It's a problem. But you can also use that to reduce the problem. You can use MNCs to solve the problem, but MNCs can also be a problem. So it's a double-edged sword. What's the problem? No, not money. Oh, Felicia, you can hear at last. Huh? So you all look at MNC, the topic is like, yeah, this is not important, but it is very important according to James Morrison when you just listen to him for 13 minutes. It's a 4-syllable, 2 words. Second word, H. What? No, not market. Yeah, think carefully. M, 2-syllable, H, 2 syllables. What? Oh, I know, but I don't want to tell you. Come on, guys. You see, when you study all these things, you have to go back to the 3 schools. You have to do that. So I'm trying to get you that context so that you don't find that this is not important. But you see, when you go and study like logistic and supply chain, you have this big picture in your head. Okay, so you can be on the side of the Marxists complain like hell, or you can be on the other side that you say that this actually can help to solve the problem. We will speak more about it when we are looking at the next lecture, after a break, the holidays, and we look at environment. MNCs can be the strength of globalization. MNCs can help to recover, help the global economy to recover. In a post-pandemic economy, you need the MNCs again, for sure. Okay? But they have done a lot of damage as well. So that damage is called what? Okay, let's go back to John Locke. No markets. Your everyday, well, this guy is a Marxist, but I tell you, when I come to this part here, everybody give me different answers. Oh, so what we are trying to study here, the agency, is right or wrong? It's a moral hazard. We can never get a situation where there is no moral hazard. That's for sure. The world is never that way. You can reincarnate 1 million times, you come back, the world will still have moral hazard. But what we are trying to achieve as academics, of course, is to ensure we study and assess and evaluate what's the moral hazard. All these MNCs, capitalists will always be there. Okay? How is it that we can reduce the moral hazard? Okay, you don't have to get to that philosophical part of it, or morality and all these things. But what I'm trying to say is that when you are looking at it from this IPE course, when you look at MNCs, there's a global supply chain out there. Okay? There are people who benefit from it. There are people who didn't benefit from it. So from there, the moral hazard, what is it that we can see as moral hazard in our course? What is it? To you, is a moral hazard that the MNCs have created. To you. What is a moral hazard then? Huh? Alienation from? What the hell is that? No, just put it in simple English, can? Alienation from? Lack of meaning. No, that one too philosophical for me. I just want you to tell me, when you see the global economy, you see the MNCs are the primary agent. Okay, there's a moral hazard out there. What is it that you would say, pinpoint, and say this is a moral hazard? What is it? Take 2 minutes to think about it. Underemployment and lack of diversity in jobs. Okay, that in itself. Okay, Yong Seng is giving us the details of it. So you go take a step backwards. What does it mean then, in a word, when there's underemployment and lack of diversity in job? You don't say the word compliance. Okay, you're going to say compliance, then you got to take a step back again. What happened in order for compliance to be fostered or accentuated? What was happening there? Okay, commodification of the human body. Wow. Well, just talk about the economy itself. You take compliance, lack of diversity, underemployment, compliance, then look at the country itself. You know why I need you to do that? I need you to do that because you must be more aware of what's going on down there. Today you go and read the Channel News Asia how the PSD is reforming the whole bureaucracy. Okay, there's a news article down there. And you can see that they are re-indexing the labor market. And that's because the MNCs want it that way, not because the government wants it that way. So that's why I'm asking you, when there's underemployment, which is going to happen because you see they cut staff strength across the civil service and even in ministries all, and in GLCs. Okay, there is compliance here, but behind that, what underpins that compliance then? That is a moral hazard. There's a competition among states right now. Am I right to say that? Because all states want investment from the MNCs. Everybody believes that if you have huge amount of investment, you are considered what? A failed state or successful state? How would you assess the state? Successful or failed when you have a lot of investment in your country? Successful, right? Yeah. So what do? Everyone has this race going on out there. And every state is actually competing. So it creates that moral hazard. Competition is good, but competition also creates moral hazard. And what is that moral hazard then? Envy. No, it starts with I, which we have discussed as a topic. It starts with I, not bribery. Good try. Inequality, thank you very much. What I'm trying to do here is that you understand 3 topics here: poverty, inequality, MNCs, and environment within the context of globalization. I repeat myself. I want you to study and even combine those 4 chapters: poverty, inequality, you're not going to get a question purely on inequality. Unlikely. You're going to get a very big picture question. But even if you get a question on inequality, please bring in the other 2 topics, which is MNC and environment. If you do look at environment under globalization, that means you got to bring in how the trading system, which actually accentuated inequality, okay, had helped some countries to come out of poverty, okay, and that's because of the MNCs. So there's always this interconnectedness when you explain. It helps you to open up your discussion, and that actually becomes more exciting. So the problem with a lot of people, I would say, is that they will write their essay when it's environment, they just everything environment, but they don't bring in. But the exam question will definitely be a combination of environment and trade, environment and WTO, environment and globalization, environment and inequality, okay, or MNCs and the environment. So you're not going to get a question solely on environment or a question solely on MNC. But why is a lecture conducted like that? 1 chapter, 2 lectures. Because I need to explain in detail to you. So the second lecture, we're going to go, bring everything together, and then you have a bigger picture again. Okay? So the details are there, but I'm not going to explain every damn thing about MNCs to you, because that's not the main thing. Like, what is the difference between portfolio management and FDI? This is not going to be required in exams, but it's for you to go and figure. You want to add whatever. You're not going to write the word FDI, the definition. Portfolio management, what's the definition? You need to write it from a perspective of the 3 schools. And that perspective is to argue based on moral hazard. And in moral hazard, there is inequality. Okay? And the primary agent of the moral hazard is the MNC. You get that? The primary agent of globalization is the MNC. The primary agent of moral hazard emerging in globalization is also MNC. By the same token, that same primary agent can also be that an institution, so to speak, okay, that help the world to reduce that inequality, that you can actually help to improve the climate because of the MNC. Okay, so I do not want you to write it from a Marxist perspective and say MNCs are bad, or capitalist revolution, what's this guy's name? Forgot his name. Lenin. Yeah, Lenin. That is very one-sided. So what you should do in your exams is you open up the discussion and provide assessment and insights. I repeat myself, in your exams, open up the discussion to provide assessment and insights. So do not just write on one school. So when you see the word crisis, definitely you have to use Marxist. But the word crisis itself allows you to open up the next discussion, which is moral hazard. Okay, then you can bring in what neoliberalism is all about that created a moral hazard. How the rise of MNCs in the 70s all the way till before the pandemic has damaged the environment. That's a crisis itself. How that has actually accentuated the rich country and the poor country. Okay, and then you can just briefly give a brief outline of what Wallenstein has been saying about the international system, and that this polarisation, this hierarchy, and this exploitation will only be happening because we have MNCs out there in the global economy. Ken, I want you all to be very flexible in your argument. When I read your essays, right, you are like, protesters. You understand what I'm saying? You're protesting based on your interests. I'm a liberal. Are liberals right? Liberals are so right. You don't understand what I need to tell you. Listen up. I'm a liberal. From my last finger to my last toe, I'm a liberal. So listen up. So the person write everything about liberals, but then they never talk about what went wrong. What went wrong? Why is it so right? And then you lead to a trade war between the US and China. Okay, so my job is to help you. And this is very important because if any of you were to pursue postgraduate, especially when you go to the UK, you listen to the way they talk. You can never really catch them. There's a skill that I learned as a student in the UK. You can never really catch them. Why you can never catch them? Because they're giving you an assessment and tell you what went wrong. Perhaps you can re-evaluate the situation by looking at that, like say Mercantilism, or why the liberals are wrong, or what went wrong with the liberals. And we can draw some lessons from the events of the global financial crisis. Okay? And we can draw some lessons from China entering the WTO. Was it a right thing that the Americans allowed the Chinese to enter the WTO? Okay? And now with the rise of China like that, would you also say that this current or impending Cold War that is drawing a line between, on one side, the Russians and Chinese, which the Chinese have become much stronger than before, okay, and the Americans and the British on the other side, and this Cold War will be a bit more enduring as compared to the previous Cold War. You see how they go on and on about it. So if you just say, I'm a liberal, right, then the Cold War means nothing to you. And what you will say is, Putin is an idiot. Gorbachev was good. He did the right thing. Deng Xiaoping did the right thing. Mao Zedong should just die and never appear again. Okay, so you can do that, but you can be sure you get less than 40 in your exams. Based on my experience when I talked to James Morrison. Okay, so do appreciate the different schools of thought. Don't take sides. Okay, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, there's this guy from the Chinese Communist Party telling me how the textbook should be. Yeah, I said, it's up to you. You can go to LSC and tell them how you want the textbook to be. Okay, apparently the guy got into a lot of trouble. Do not want to go into any detail to that, but be careful. I'm not saying that you are not allowed to be a liberal outside yourself, but as far as I'm concerned, for your exams, you got to be very level-headed in that argument. And if you do that, you can see your essay will appear to be 3 pages at least. Try that. Okay, so it's not difficult to write a 3-page essay if you follow my approach. And he will be very happy to give you an A. Okay? All right, so we do want to know that MNCs, how they, the main thing that you see there, MNCs can exert influence on states' behavior. And that in itself is to give an analysis and assessment how the MNCs create moral hazard. Okay, so you can go into one aspect of your argument, how MNCs create moral hazard by exerting influence on state behaviors. And the second thing that you can also go deeper into that is how they bargain. There's this bargaining relationship that they have between the state and the MNCs. Okay, and in your final conclusion, you can also say successful states are the ones, this is an extension of last week's lecture, which is economic development. They can have an integration approach here, how they respond and bargain with the MNCs. So usually the successful state are the ones that are responsive state. What do you mean by responsive? In many ways, accommodating towards the demands of the MNCs. If you cannot accommodate to the demands of the MNCs, then something is not going to work out at all. Okay, just think of MNCs as a woman is so pretty, and very difficult to please her. Yeah, MNCs are like that. So hot chick, very hard to please her. But you must be some kind of a maverick, some damn smooth talker. You know what to do. You can stay ahead of the curve, preempt whatever she wants. Okay, you got this integration approach. First, you must manage her expectations in order to do that. Second, you must always stay calm and collected. So for the state is they know how to stabilize the society. They know what are the resources that they can utilize and reallocate. Okay, in order, so like for a man, he will go and get his best career and university degree and all the money. So for the state, you get all the people in the labor market to get the right skills. Okay, and the bureaucracy is flexible enough. Okay, now they want digitalization, they want artificial intelligence, all wholesale across the manufacturing sector. Okay, we can do it for you. Okay, so how the state also uses their own investment-linked companies, their own corporations to prevent the hold-up by MNCs. So the responsiveness must come with how the state create what is known as state-owned enterprises. Remember, from the economic nationalist perspective of List, we need to promote SMEs. So the state can be the ones that started the SMEs, and from there, they are the ones that make the government-linked companies into consortiums, leveraging MNC's production network. I believe that's what Indonesia's Jokowi is doing, from the way I look at it. Again, Mahathir did that. Lee Kuan Yew did that. So they are learning from each other. As much as I was telling you about Indonesia as the next big thing, you can see how Singapore government, Lee Hsien Loong, wear batik. You saw the news? He wear batik, go there and, give in to Jokowi's demand, defense cooperation. Space at the Riau Island. And the other one is fugitives, money launderers that come from Indonesia to Singapore. So the banking sector will go through a revamp. They will reveal all those people who have been washing money in Singapore. And you can be sure a lot of government officials will be affected here. Okay, so the bargaining relationship between the state and the MNC is one assessment you have to get. I repeat myself, the bargaining relationship between the MNCs and the state is very important. So successful state are responsive state. Okay, so put it in a very blunt manner. The leader, when they exercise leadership, is to begin with when you are a developing country. He knows how to organize the bureaucracy to be in compliance with the demands of the MNC. Because first and foremost, the country does not have anything. They don't have the resources. Most important, no capability at all. Okay, so you have to be like Lee Kuan Yew in that sense when you go out into the workforce. Then you have to comply with the management system in the office that you're going to work. Don't try to be a maverick. I know what I'm doing. Come on, man. I'm a liberal, individual capacity building. Then you're finished. I think you better just go and start your own business. Okay? You want to get into an MNC? You got to appreciate your management system. Okay? That's the difference between Lee Kuan Yew and the socialists. The socialists, Barisan socialists, didn't want all that. He said, don't worry. We can do it ourselves. Like the dependency theories. We will get the MNCs here. Okay? If that happened, today we will have no defense industry. Today we will have no SIA. We will have no Changi Airport. We have no shipyard. Our schools will be backwards. Although we complain that it's so damn bloody tough. Okay? The subjects that we study might be obsolete. Trying to be contemporary but not getting there. Because at the end of it, the MNCs are the one that create the private sector in the developing country. Okay, the MNCs are the one that create the private sector in a developing country. So Singapore is an example, South Korea is an example, Taiwan is an example, Japan is an example, Malaysia is an example, Thailand is an example. Thailand is like one of the location for car production network. You can get all kinds of spare parts in Thailand there for cars. Okay? So I was thinking to myself, when my car is scrapped, maybe I'll just drive my car all the way to Cambodia or whatever, then I just call LTA, my car has gone case palm. Singapore COE is rubbish. I was thinking to myself, if I drive my car to Cambodia, what are they going to do? Can you please bring your car back? No, I can't drive it back. I'm going to take a flight back. I'm not sure how many days. I've driven like 10 days across America, so I should be able to drive to Cambodia from here. Is it possible to drive to Vietnam? Possible? Oh, that would be interesting. Singapore car go to Vietnam. Where? I can't hear you. Oh, is it? There and back? Wow. Why don't you drive when the day when the COE expire? I'm not coming back. It's just like you tell your mom, I'm studying, I'm not coming back. Okay, so do have a few areas up your sleeve when you talk about MNCs. So I repeat, the big picture is a moral hazard again. A moral hazard because there's a race among states, developing countries, to comply with the MNCs. Got that? If you didn't get that, I'm going to repeat myself. Raise your hand if you didn't get it. Yongxin got it? Felicia got it or not? Suddenly I know Felicia can hear again. Felicia, you got it? Or Shijie? Okay. So that's, what's that? Repeat again. Okay. So you got to come from the perspective that MNCs are, the primary agent of globalization. So from our perspective here in IPE, your starting point is the moral hazard there. Okay, there's this agency that states, right? They are trying to comply with the MNCs. There's a race to win favors from MNCs, which is called investment. Everyone got it now? Investment is very important for the state. So they want to appear to be successful state there. So, but in the global economy, it has created polarisation. It has allowed exploitation. And it has also created a hierarchy in that sense. So what I've just said so far, there's moral hazard, there's hierarchy, there's exploitation, there's polarization. So basically I brought in the three schools already. You get it? The three schools are all in there already. So when there's a word called agency, there's this thing about exercising your will, which will lead to some people gain, some people lose. So when the person who loses, there will be a moral hazard in the economy or in the global economy. Okay? So you come from that perspective. Tell me when I can continue. Then I'll go to the next level of argument for you. Done? Done. Eh? So when you see that moral hazard, you see that exploitation, you go deeper and understand how MNCs exert their influence on states' behavior. Okay, I repeat myself. When you want to assess the exploitation, you want to assess the polarization and the hierarchy in the international system, you want to go deeper and evaluate how MNCs exert their influence on states' behavior. Everyone online got it already? So you see all these learning outcomes, right, very important for you to draft your essay. Don't take these learning outcomes as like, never mind, just never mind, I'm going to write what I want to write. Write according to the learning outcomes. Okay? So in doing so, right, the next thing that we want to do is to evaluate the bargaining relationship between the MNCs and the state. That's how we can have insights of the moral hazard. That's how we can have insights of compliance. That's how we can have insight, as what Yong Seng said, under employment of resources. Okay? These are the issues that you need to address in your essay. And on the other side of the bargaining relationship will be the state. So you've been talking about the MNC, so you must talk on the other side of the bargaining relationship, which will be the state. So you're going to bring in this discussion of successful state and failed state. So you can bring in examples of successful state and failed state. So this is the time when you can evaluate China, the rise of China, whether the Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party, has been successful so far in managing the MNCs in China. So you can perhaps say that China has gone through a shock therapy, although the economy has slowed down, but China is still marching towards being a developed economy. That will be one aspect of it. On the other hand, you can say that there is also an issue as the MNCs are realigning their production network and how it will affect the Chinese economy. So you basically providing insights of that bargaining relationship. Okay, and in the process, China developed its own MNCs like Alibaba, Tencent, company Huawei, all these companies. Then you bring another country, perhaps Singapore, where you have a government-linked company and MNC nexus. Okay, they bind the production of the government-linked companies and the MNCs to create a private sector. The state has been successful in doing that. Okay, so not many countries could have done that. You bind the government-linked companies and the MNC's production network. You create an alliance that was driving growth, driving development, and all your national development plan was very efficient and effective. So today we want to move to a green economy. Very quickly we can just transform our economy. That's how effective and efficient Singapore is. No matter how you love or hate the PAP, what you see as evidence, you have to state it out as it is. Okay, do not be that biased just because you don't like Lee Hsien Loong, so you say, stupid this one. You just put it in a big picture, or you like him, then you say, yeah, everything of him is great. He's just like his father. He's so handsome, so tall, whatever you want to say. That's not the way you will write in your IPE essay. Okay, so the bargaining relationship, that was the successful one. What about the unsuccessful one? What would you write? That's my question to you. What is an unsuccessful state? Responded, okay, to the needs of the MNCs, but could not have control of the society, whereby there is underemployment of its resources, which means to say high unemployment still. A lot of graduates that are unemployed, to make it worse. Okay, although you see, a lot of MNCs, but you also see a lot of unemployed people. So there's this disconnect there. We do not see an integration approach in terms of the state in developing their own economy. Okay, so we can see high growth rates, but we see not so great development in that country. What country would that be? Any country. Can anyone tell me? Right? Can you name me a country where there are a lot of MNCs, people are underemployed? Yeah? Thailand. Yeah, that would be one. Another one? Thailand got a lot of graduates unemployed. My brother's business in Thailand, he said so many graduates. And if I just put on advertisement, you know how many thousand people will apply? I'm like, how do you select? Actually, I select based on people I know. I don't select based on people applying. Then when you advertise for what? To see. To feel the market. It's not expensive. India. Yeah. India is another classic example. A lot of graduates are unemployed. But you have a lot of MNCs there as well. So there's this state that has not been successful in, binding like for India, it should be small, medium enterprises and the MNCs. And create an alliance and create a private sector that will fully utilize the resources, human resources. Okay? And the other one will be Africa. They have a lot of commodities, but you have a lot of problems there. Okay? Although China say, they have helped to solve the problem, but they're still unemployed. The unemployment is still high in Africa. Okay? So you gotta be Italy, not many MNCs. But Italy is not a good location. We usually look at developing countries, you know what I'm saying? That's a better example to give. Felicia said India. Wow. Not only Felicia can hear now, she can think as well. Very interesting creature. So when you talk about MNCs, please bring in the developing countries there for you to see how developing countries move from periphery to semi-periphery. Italy would not fit that bill. Okay, Yong Sing? And in some semi-peripheries, they have sovereign wealth funds, like Singapore. But Singapore is very unique, 2 sovereign wealth funds. Small country with 2 sovereign wealth funds. Okay? Even Malaysia has sovereign wealth fund, but they misuse it. You should have followed Najib's case, and you know. So there are varieties of capitalism out there. There are varieties of mistakes out there. There are different kinds of mistakes that states have made and remain as failed state. Okay? But there are also lessons to draw from successful states like Singapore. I would say Malaysia was very successful. But a lot of people don't look at it that way because you compare Malaysia and Singapore, but you compare Malaysia and other developing countries. Okay, you see Malaysia, I would say, very successful. I'll just give you an example. So coming from Singapore, I go to UK, right? So my first class was Marxism, second class was development economics. So I went to my second class, right? So these Africans, they see me. Are you from Malaysia? Are you from? No, I'm from Singapore. Oh, that is that very, very modern kind of city-state. Yeah, yeah. And why you ask me I'm from Malaysia? Yeah, we want to learn about Malaysia. Yeah, look at myself. Why you want to learn about Malaysia? So they explained to me. That was an eye-opener to me. Because in our perception, we say, all these Malaysians, you see, every time got robbery, corrupt and all this. But when you go to other countries in Africa, they say Mahathir did a great job. You know what? You can never, ever remove corruption. But the level of corruption that has been put under the carpet by Mahathir, okay, from a feudalistic society, they would say in Africa, to one that is modern Islamic state, is actually quite a feat. It's not easy to achieve. Okay, so as much as they are fighting now, the politicians calling each other's name and say it's going to be a failed state, it is not a failed state. It's because they want to consolidate power to gain mass support. They say, no, you follow him, it will be a failed state. No, you follow him, it's a failed state. But you look at it, the 2018 election, they didn't plunge into chaos like what a lot of people would have expected. They're somewhat quite stable. So the Johor state election that we're going to see soon, I bet every dollar UMNO is going to win Johor state. I bet every dollar on Malacca to win, and it won. And UMNO is going to win Johor. When you win Malacca and Johor, UMNO wins the whole general election. So they are using this COVID-19 as a strategy to win back the people's heart. And Johor will go back to UMNO because UMNO has incentive for them, the high-speed railway. Okay, so that's how the state responds to the people. If you look at Johor, if they don't have all these things, Johor will degenerate. Okay, so successful state, right, is one that know how to stabilize the society. And if UMNO wins, you're going to see a huge amount of MNCs coming to Malaysia again. Why? Because there's political stability, and they are they have the track record of complying with what the MNCs want. So that is what very important from a historical perspective. Okay, UMNO is actually the social force of Malaysia's capitalism. UMNO is the immune system of the Malaysian capitalism. Okay, and what they can do now is to co-opt other component parties to make it more sustainable. So that component party will be the MCA. The MCA can overtake the DAP. Why? Because the Chinese in Malaysia, if I look at them, they say, you know what, this DAP, after they get into power, they don't know what they're doing. They say a lot of things. They say, wow, great plans, but they didn't do anything. All they do is to blame Najib. Okay, so it is proven record that UMNO can push Malaysia to the next level of development. Of course, you will always hear this, character assassination. But look at the big picture there. Okay, so the bargaining power of the state responding to MNCs are very important. And if UMNO wins, you're going to see a lot of Japanese investment in Malaysia, lesser of Chinese investment in Malaysia. So there's a problem between this Malaysian government and the Chinese government. One of the things is the South China Sea. Okay, so they're very smart. They know that they were successful because of the Japanese. So why not we go back to that relationship? They're not going to bother with the Chinese so much. Okay, slowly but surely they will cut them off. All right, so the integration approach is one for you to assess whether it's a failed state or successful state. Do not just state, oh, it's successful. How to assess and evaluate you based on that integration approach. That brings us to the previous lecture, the topic of the two lectures there, which is economic development. So when you're looking at the state, you have to look at the economic development, the aspect of economic development. Do not just state numbers, economic growth, and all these things. That is the job of economists. Okay? They like to come up with numbers. But what you want to do is you trying to explain based on the perception of state power there, how they accumulate state power. Okay, economists don't do that. They assume that state always have power. All right. So the history of MNCs. Can anyone tell me what is your perception of the history of MNC? So when you say history itself, we're going to the narratives of Marx immediately. History. Marxism is a study of history. Right? The history of MNCs. Where's the starting point then for you? Where is the starting point? Okay. Okay. Different people will have different ideas. But maybe I want to see where you're coming from. Then I'll tell you we have to be on the same page here. Anyone else? When you look at the history of MNC, what's your starting point? Again? Colonialism, some more? 2 minutes, you want to discuss with each other? What is your starting point? When you look at MNCs, remember we have students from all over, so they might look at MNCs differently. Okay, I want you to stay on the same page as me or as the syllabus. So those online, you can tell me where's your starting point for MNCs. He's in these companies. Okay. Oliver, where's your starting point? He's in your trading company. That's our history book, right? That's a bit lame, right? Everything we learn about British and Dutch only. But where's the real starting point here? You're going to go to the historical materialism. Right? It should be what? Hierarchy, polarisation, exploitation. That's what MNC is all about. So where's the starting point here? How do you see that hierarchy? Yeah, colonialism is a process. They colonize, they exploit. Right or not? So they seize territories. But what did they go through first before they could actually colonize? Yeah, how do you get that power? Again? I can't hear you. Can you type into the thing? Industrialization, okay. Okay. What was that industrialization called? Not imperialism. Not feudalism. Feudalism is this industrialization, right? Actually, was the rise of capitalism to overthrow feudalism. Okay, so what is that? What is it called? All of you want that? Yeah, before that 1860 French British treaty. What was it? How you spell it? Is it like that? Renaissance. Okay, so the Renaissance is one thing that you need if you really want to talk about industrialization, a productive power. You want to go deeper and understand it. Go and understand the Renaissance. Our political leaders don't understand that. There's no Renaissance for. Is there enlightenment? Yes. So there's this. There's not just about creating workers that have the right skill. There's more to it. So remember, you are political scientist or political economist. You gotta understand it from that perspective. Okay, because whatever has been created now is very structural, technocracy. But what you want to pursue is the enlightenment, right? So you want to have that wisdom. Why would anybody want to have Renaissance? So that's where the liberals, the start of liberalism. So as you young people go out there, you want to start a revolution, not people's revolution, but more of an industrial revolution based on enlightenment. Okay, I'm very sure you're not into chaos, riots, and all these things. You're more into peace, stability, but a greater avenue to demonstrate your ability or to develop your own ability. I think that is what young people want. Not just Singapore, Malaysia also the same, I can see that. You go Indonesia also, I can feel it. Okay, in Vietnam, I can feel it. Thailand, I can feel it. Okay, so who is the one that is hindering it? Actually, it's a state. So the state actually is in the process of self-defeating, you know. They are not helping their own people. They are stuck in that compliance to accommodate MNCs. Okay? So I want you to understand the history of MNC is the start of compliance. And actually, going through colonialism, we are still in Singapore, stuck in that colonial era. We are very stuck in that colonial era. Okay? So I just asked you this question. Before we had cultural diversity. Now we have lesser cultural diversity. Why is that so? When you have a reduction in cultural diversity, you sterilize the society. We have to conform to what the state wants. The state is trying to achieve stability in society. And in doing so, you will see that they will try to narrow diversity, not broaden diversity. Because when it's broader, yeah, okay. When you broaden it, it becomes more complex and complicated for them. Okay? So the history of MNCs, right? The colonial masters, they only deal with the elite. They deal with the elite. And it's the same thing happening again. You go to Pakistan, Imran Khan. You know who is Imran Khan? Anyone knows who is Imran Khan? The Prime Minister of Pakistan? Oh, you all don't know. Imran Khan was actually just a cricketer. But he's the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Okay? And he's dealing directly with, the British are dealing with him directly. And he's usually based in London, although he's a Prime Minister of Pakistan. Until when he became Prime Minister of Pakistan, he was actually in London always. And he's got a British wife. So, very exciting person, like, wow, I got a British wife. So he's very elitist. That's the colonial way of doing things. And you look at Harry Lee. You know who is Harry Lee? You know who is Harry Lee? Harry Lee Kuan Yew, okay? Also went to Cambridge to study with his wife. Okay? So Harry Lee Kuan Yew is also considered an elite. Okay? So these are the people that they want to deal with. And these are the people that can understand what to comply with. They are the ones that teach us all these institutional arrangements. They are the ones that influence us with the language. Okay? So to the point that a lot of people say must speak good English, must have proper diction and pronunciation. If not, you will be considered second class, so to speak. All right, so the history of MNCs itself, when you go deeper, you look at the Renaissance, the East India Company will be the colonization part, really. Okay, for them is Renaissance, but for us is exploitation. It's polarisation. It's a hierarchy that has been, by design, created by colonial masters. Okay, so let's go back to the three schools of thought again. The MNCs that created that moral hazard again. I say to you one more time. The history of it is very clear-cut. They created the distinction between the core and the periphery. From then, it really started. Not because of the dependency theorists, but the dependency theorists articulated it because they want to reject the MNCs. And it is still the same from those times when the East India companies, they have a trading post. One of the locations called Singapore, which all of us know very well. They also have a military post. So where is the location of the military post of the British in Singapore? Anyone? Changi Airport? Where? Where exactly is the location? If you all don't know, right, that means you all only know how to go Pulau Tekong BMT. After that, 3 months come out, oh yeah, and then after that go officer course, then take out SWOT war, whatever bullshit. Oh my God, you don't know the history. Where's the, where? Then those are no, the warships are not there. Yeah lah, Sembawang. Well, at least you know. Okay, so that itself, a lot of history going on there in Sembawang. And by the way, actually we have Orang Aslis. Do you know that? Singapore got Orang Asli, you know that? You know what is the Singapore Orang Asli called? Don't know. Not Orang Laut lah. The name of the Orang Asli, they got different tribes, right? Ours is what? Don't know also. Don't know. Orang Selita. Yeah. You know where are they based? Selita. Thank you very much. Because last year got one student asked, so where are they based? Selita lah. Then everybody laugh. Very good. So we had that the cultural aspect of trading. Okay, the Arabs were already here before the British came. Who were the Arabs? So Arabs, so many kind of Arabs, right? What are the main group of people? Where were they from? Where? Yeah, the Al-Kaf. But where are they from? Which country? Yemen, Al-Kaf, Al-Sagaf, Al-Junid. These are the three main. So when you all every time those Xinjiang people, Al-Junid, yeah. But actually it's Al-Junid. So when it's Al, A-L, means it's the Junid family. A-L, the Sagov family. So actually it's Sagov. Okay? Al-Kaf, the Cuff family. Okay, so these are the three main families, and there's another one called Syed family. Okay, so he actually wanted to create. They were from Yemen. They went Indonesia, then come to Singapore. So these are actually the trading routes already there. So they colonize this trading route and they capture it. Okay, and when they captured that, very fortunate for them, a lot of movement of goods and services went through this East India companies. And to protect that, they need to have the warships there. Today, it's the same thing. So you can see China, the Belt and Road Initiative will be the same. When they build those roads and whatever infrastructure, one of those things that will be included will be a shipyard, come military posts. So one of those locations they have already capitalized is Sri Lanka. Okay, so in modern context, not just they want to capture warships, what is it called? Capture the location, the shipyard. In modern context, they also want the airport, because aviation sector since the 1930s have emerged, right? So you can see how even the defense industry has expanded. So you have defense industry in the MNCs also. Okay, so you see Singapore expanded as globalization, interdependence of the world deepened. But now with the pandemic, they say Terminal 2 stop first. That means you know something is wrong. The interdependence has actually loosened up. Okay, to me, I think it has broken down, especially with China saying there is zero COVID policy. I would say totally gone. So Singapore was placed in the middle of the US-China relationship, and one fellow says zero COVID policy means 1949 to me. Close the door. It's exactly, but they're not saying like the Mao Zedong, much. Guamen, not that type. Now it's like, sorry, zero COVID policy. So that is happening in China. So when are they going to open up? Nobody is announcing anything. They're not going to announce anything. You can be sure China is not going to announce when. China insists they want to have zero COVID policy. But the truth is, you can never have zero COVID policy. You never have zero COVID. Somehow you'll go into your country. Okay? So the very important thing was to extract natural resources. So based on this, right, before we go for the break, having the MNCs will fit into which school of thought? Liberals, mercantilist, or Marxist? Or the state, the state that went through Renaissance. What were they? They're liberals. But they want to extract people's natural resources. That's how liberals behave. Are you saying that? Are you sure? Is that what liberalism is all about? I thought there's new liberalism, but liberalism wasn't like that, no. Extract people's natural resources, no. At that time, it was like Ricardo's specialization. You specialize in your comparative advantage, right? So that is the liberals. But when you say, when you look at the history of MNCs, the whole purpose of having this MNC is like a government linked company or imperial linked company. That time not government linked. And the purpose was to extract natural resources. Because the whole purpose was to accelerate your industrialization. When you have resources, you can accelerate your industrialization. So which school of thought is that? Mercantilism. Because you want to increase your war chest. When you have all these resources and you can beef up your defense to protect your trading networks, it's a mercantilist view. So it actually is nothing new of a liberal hegemonic world then. It's nothing new. The liberal hegemonic world is different. nothing new, sorry. The Dutch already had that, the British already had that, they built their empire so many years. So that's why people call this American imperialism, the modern American imperialism, extending on the British imperialism. What is this American imperialism? It's the expansion of the defense industry, not just warships. Of course, the Americans are very superior in the sea, but the Americans are very superior with drones these days. More superior than anyone else. They don't need to send any soldiers to fight anymore. They can send someone, a drone there, go and shoot someone in Iran. Oh, that dictator, bam, then they just announce he's dead. Okay, so you gotta understand the MNCs. The MNCs, right, it's not just about goods and services. When you have trading networks, the MNCs that can remain powerful to sustain that the legitimacy of their empire is based on the military. Military is very important. Okay, so when you go crane field, they study logistics and supply chain. You are looking at the MNCs. You do not look at a historical perspective. But today I'm here to tell you how it all started. That global production network. Two things happen at the same time: trade and defense. They reinforce each other. So you see Singapore's trading network becomes more complex and more interconnected. You can be very sure Singapore's defense industry, the development of its defense industry, has also been very sophisticated. We have very modern defense industry, although it's a very small country. Okay? Our national development is actually defense, the development of defense industry. Okay, let's take a break first. Yeah, CJ got it, Mercantilism.